We've been promising, and today we are finally taking a look at my new favorite camera, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, which also has the longest name of all time. So for the rest of the episode, I'm just gonna be calling it the Pocket Cam. We've had this camera for 3 or 4 months and I've used it on several sketches, including the war test scene that we did a couple of weeks ago. And like I've said over and over, I am in love with this thing. And today we're gonna get into all the reasons why I love it and a few things that I'd like to see improved in the future. Now, Blackmagic did send me this camera, but I'm not getting paid for this review. And as always, we only show you guys gear that we truly dig. And I very much love this camera, but I'm gonna stop gushing about it and show you some footage. We shot all of that in Vegas while at NAB this year, and while I was there, I met up with my very talented friends Jordy Wax and Chase Smith, and Chase is an insanely talented DP and was my DP for Ballistic, and I convinced him to take the camera and shoot some stuff for me while we walked around, so any of the shots that look extra great is because Chase, because talent. Overall, I'm just honestly very impressed by this camera. I really don't understand how they've packed so much into this little thing. But before I dive into all the reasons I love it, let's look at the practical. First, of course, is the body, very similar to a DSLR sort of feel, makes it feel very familiar to shoot with. And up top, we have connection for some rigging. Next to that, we have our power, then 3 customizable buttons. Then here we have some quick link buttons for ISO, shutter, and white balance, a stills button, and our record button. And here you see the on-camera mics, which aren't bad, definitely better than a lot of similar cameras. I would rarely use that, but it's definitely nice to have when running 2 systems sound, makes it easy to sync things later. More often than not though, I'll be utilizing the audio connections that this camera has, like our mic in, so we can use something like our Deity Mic. And if you need more than that, you could use something like we've been trying out lately, and that's this R4 mixer. It's pretty much a mini mixer with all the features that you would need, including really nice preamps, which is where camera audio usually struggles. So you can mount this to the camera, connect it through the 3.5mm connection, and now you can use it as a small mixer with whatever camera you use. You have, of course, your gain knobs right here with these 2 light indicators here to let you know if you're peaking. The first white light letting you know if you're getting close, and the red showing you when you're hitting that ceiling. And it has all the things that you would need in something like this: phantom power, high pass, and so on. But what's really cool is it's also a recorder. So while you're connected to your camera, you can be recording internally to the cam and to the recorder in WAV format. And because of that, it's also great for recording podcasts or anything similar on the go. So if you're looking for something like that, link in the notes. But let's continue. Down here we have our headphone jack, full-size HDMI, our power port, USB-C, and mini XLR. And that mini XLR is going to let you connect to anything you need, including a shotgun mic. Moving around to the back, we have our auto iris and focus buttons, the high frame rate letting us jump to slow motion, our zoom so we can check focus, the menu button, and our playback button for watching clips. Of course, next to all that is our very large and pretty LCD monitor, which is also touchscreen. And what's great about this is I can touch any of these settings here to quickly adjust them, or tap our media, which is where we can format the cards, add the real number. The other thing with the touchscreen is the tap to focus, which, you know, you tap it to focus. But let's go ahead and jump right into the menu here. Okay,
I think it's rolling. So I know I said last week was probably my last chance to save a Josh, but I think I'm pretty positive this time is the last time. I'm bleeding a lot. Yeah, I am in a trunk, so that's not cool, but I wrote down some ideas that maybe you could do to help me not perish. Domain has all your website needs, including .com and .net domain names. They have intuitive website builders. They're very affordable. They're very reliable. They have tools you need. You could start sharing your ideas to the world if you brand yourself. Domain has over 300 extensions to fit your needs from .com to .space. And you can save so much money if you use a coupon code FilmRiot to get 15% off. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to be alive for very long, so it would be really cool if you go get a domain. So using domain is domain.com. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me.
So inside of our menu here, the first thing that we have is our record area, which is where we will spend most of our time. So let's just run through the other bits quickly. Inside of monitor, we can select what we want to have on our LCD and external monitors. We have clean feed, which is nothing at all on our screen. We can choose to display our LUT or not. Then we have zebra, focus assist, and our frame guides, which I love how they handle the frame guides on this camera. If you jump back out to the main screen here, you tap the frame guide icon. And of course you can turn it on and off right from here as well, but you can also dive into the selections, including frame guides from 240 all the way to 4:3. You also have thirds, crosshairs, or center dot, false color, and zebra controls in here, and you can choose which of them you want on or off. So lots of specific options that you can customize individually. And if we shift over, we have more options here, including screen brightness. But next we have audio. You can select your source for channels 1 and 2, and you have your meters and gain. And if we shift over here, we have our headphones and speaker volume, and of course our phantom power. In setup, we have standard options here and an image stabilization switch. This is just for turning IS on and off for your lens if it has it. The Pocket Cam 4K does not have internal stabilization. Then if we jump over to LUTs, we have some built-in LUTs that come with the camera that we can choose from, or we can click this arrow here to import our own LUTs, which of course you can create your own LUTs right inside the full version of DaVinci Resolve because that comes free with the camera. So the best industry standard color grading software comes free with this camera. I just don't understand how they do it.
4K should you put out the ProRes? Blackmagic.
But let's jump back to the record tab and some of the main things I love about this camera. First, we have our codec types. A few months ago, they upgraded to Blackmagic RAW, so we now have that much better workflow here, and we can select different ratios, of course. Then we have our flavors of ProRes, which is what I'm shooting with 99% of the time. I find that I very rarely use RAW. ProRes is really an excellent codec and more than enough for the majority of the work that I do. Down here, you have your 4K, Ultra HD, and HD. And if we shift over to our next window, we have our dynamic range options. Of course, I'm always on film. Our frame rate, off-speed recording, so we can shoot in 60 and it'll play back in 24, giving us very nice slow motion. And if we wanted to, we could jump back to RAW and take this all the way to 120 frames per second slow motion in 1080. And the slow motion on this camera looks really great. I'm usually at 60, but it is nice to have that 120 option in there, which isn't cropped and isn't in some horrible codec that's just gonna break apart. Then we have our media options. You can record to SD or CFast on this camera, or you could use the USB-C port to attach a drive and record straight to that, which is a fantastic option to have when needing to offload throughout the day. In our last window here, we have time lapse, which is going to let us capture one frame every 2 frames all the way up to every 10 minutes. Again, it is great to have the RAW, and it is something that I use when needed, but mostly, especially for YouTube, ProRes is going to be all that you need here. The main point being it has ProRes, which makes me incredibly happy. All cameras forever should just have ProRes built in. But then you have dynamic range, which is somewhere where RAW really is going to help you out. There's a lot of leeway here to pull things back if needed. Then we have the low light capabilities of this camera, and in the past I have been less than impressed by Blackmagic's low light capabilities, but they are clearly getting a handle on it. As you saw in some of the Vegas shots and our battle scene, this camera does really great in low light, and the main reason for that is it's a dual ISO. You're native at 400 and then it resets at 3200. And just to take a look at that, here's a few night shots pushing this camera in low light to see how it holds. So So we have great options for audio, excellent in-camera codecs, really great quality, slow motion, and low light. This thing is a beast, and one of the most impressive things about it is the price. Right now, you can order one for $1,300, and that's just insane. I honestly don't know how they packed all the quality and features into a camera this cheap. Now this is a micro 4/3 sensor, but I don't really see that as a downside. I got a speed booster for it because I do like to get that larger than 35mm sensor feel, but also because I wanted to use my collection of EF lenses because it'd be a lot cheaper for me to get a speed booster and use my collection of lenses than it would be to build out a brand new lens kit, which is exactly what I did with my A7S. But all of our Vegas footage was shot with a micro 4/3 lens, no booster. So even if you stay in that, it is a really great look. Of course, just as with any camera that I've ever used, including the Alexa, there are some negatives here. First is the LCD. I really wish this thing would swivel and wasn't fixed. If it did that, this camera would be unstoppable, but because it's fixed, for a lot of uses, you're gonna need a monitor attached. The other main negative is gonna be the battery life. This takes LP6 batteries and it dies just very fast. You're gonna really want to have 6 or more batteries on hand or external power source like a battery grip. But those are really my only 2 complaints. I've heard a lot of people saying that you really need to build this out for it to be usable, but that's every camera in this form factor, and although I do have a cage for this, I haven't really used it yet. The cam right out of the box as is on a tripod, gimbal, or handheld has been my go-to so far. For a short film, of course I would want to build that out, but again, that's gonna be with every camera. That's not a downside on this camera. I guess my point here is for the price of this camera, this is the most insane filmmaking beast to come out in quite a while. For the price and quality that you're getting, I'm honestly floored by this thing and even more excited to see what Blackmagic does with it next. So for my money, it's easily one of the best cameras that you can get under $10,000 right now. This does sound like a commercial because I am gushing over this so much, but I really do just love this camera that much. As always, links to all the things in the notes below, and until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.